Wow. Do you know, I just went live and it said live streaming is not available right now. So obviously there's something really wrong with YouTube tonight, because the first time it just wouldn't go at all. And then I came back and it said it's not available. I tried for the third time and I think I'm actually here, but let me know if I'm actually here, because what a nightmare. Am I here? Am I here? Somebody tell me I'm here, because I have not had this kind of problem with YouTube Live before. Do you see me? Oh, thank God. Okay. Oh, thank you. Hold on a second. I can't see anything. I've fogged up my glasses now and I can't see anything. Thank you for all hanging in. You know, live just sometimes really sucks. I mean, it's like everything's set up, everything's ready to go, and then you hit the button and nothing happens, and you're trying to contact everybody to let them know, and it sucks. But anyway, thank God you're all here. So we will have a show tonight in spite of everything. Oh my God. Okay, so thank you for hanging in here. Again, you don't know how I appreciate that. And if you're a person who's coming here later and watching this when it's a rebroadcast and say, why didn't I get a notification? I could have been there and gone through all of this. You have to go to Patreon. It's listed below. And you can join Patreon, Friends of Pat Brown, and then you can participate as well. But I'm going to start out this show. Someone asked me a little while back here, what's a show about, right? Well, I've got a bunch of different things. One interesting question I was asked was, how do profilers think? I mean, what is it that makes you like a profiler? And the case right now that everybody is talking about, right? Oh my God. The Gabby Petito case. I did a public service announcement on that, and many people responded very, very nicely to it. And some people were really angry with me because they wanted me to profile the case. And they're like, why aren't you profiling the case? And why can't you talk about the domestic violence going on here, the domestic abuse, how the fiance, Brian, who's no longer a fiance, obviously, why, that he is abusing Gabby. And this is showing the world how women are abused, and how when the police came, they sucked up to Brian and kind of ignored Gabby. And you see, and so I got a lot of kind of some anger about that. And I want to explain this. And because there is a real issue here about when you're profiling something that you don't have all the information on. So I'm going to start out by saying, how does a profiler think? And there's a really good example here. And for this, I have to show you my boobs, which if I were 20, Martin, you'd really be excited. But anyway, here are my boobs. So my boobs are say, I survived Ballistic Missile Day, January 13th, 2018. Can you see all that? So what happened there? This took place in Hawaii. Any of you here right now know what this the Ballistic Missile Day was in Hawaii? Oh, you do, Christine, you do remember that. Okay. Well, when you're on the mainland, you're so far away from Hawaii, you're like, that's something that happened in the middle of the ocean, halfway to Japan. Annie says she remembers. Well, I remember it well because I was in Oahu at the very moment that this missile crisis occurred. And what's so interesting about it is how we reacted to it. Now, for those who don't know what happened, here, I'm going to take you through the morning. So I was staying on Oahu in an area called Hawaii Kai, which is kind of near Diamond Head, that very, the big mountainy thing, the volcano-y thing you see right outside of Honolulu. And I was staying at a bed and breakfast. There was a family there, husband and wife and 2 children. And then they had this room for ladies, and there were 2 bunk beds. And there was a girl, a girl we didn't know was in one of the bunk beds, and one bunk bed was empty. But in the 2 down here was myself, and also, oh, thank you for coming. I'm just going to say hi. Glad you showed up. It's not this YouTube went nuts. That's why you couldn't see it. It was just. It wouldn't load. It wouldn't go live, and it took me 3 tries. And so I'm here now, and I'm glad you're here. That's fantastic. So anyway, we're in Oahu, my friend Swarna and I, and we're staying there for a few weeks, as I usually do in the winter, because it's nice and lovely there in Oahu. And so what happened was, she was in the bottom bunk, and I was in a bottom bunk. That T-shirt is worth staying up for. Martin says, "Yes, do you want to see my boobs again?" Yeah, they're not exciting anymore. But the T-shirt's great. I own 2 of them because I lived through this day, so it has a great meaning to me. So she was sleeping and I was sleeping. It was early morning, and all of a sudden she punches me on the shoulder. Just about the same time, my phone starts beeping off, making a sound, an emergency sound. She hands me her phone, says, "What is this?" And she hands it to me, and I look at it, and it says, "Incoming missile from Korea. This is not a drill." And you're looking at it and you're going, an incoming missile from Korea, not a drill. Now, this is an official government text coming in on the emergency system. So you're not like, you're looking at that and you're going, oh my God. Meanwhile, the owner of the place comes bursting through the door crying, and he's like, "Get away from the windows." I'm not sure what that was going to do us anyway, but get away from the windows. And then I could hear in the distance the television going, "Incoming missile, incoming missile, incoming missile." And my friend, now here's how we responded. My friend, maybe most of you would do this, picked up her phone, because incoming missile meant like 10 minutes, by the way. We're not talking about, sometime this afternoon. We're talking about 10 minutes. You've got 10 minutes to live. She started texting her kids, "I love you, I love you, I love you." But I'm a profiler. I did not text my children. I went on Google because I'm looking for verification here. Because if there's actually a missile incoming, it must, even though it's, we're getting maybe the news first, it's got to be all over the news within minutes. And so I'm Googling, and I'm coming up with nothing. I can't come up with anything about a missile coming in. I'm like, this doesn't make sense, because if there's really an incoming missile, it should be the top of Google News. And so I'm still doing this until finally, about 9 minutes into this, when we had 1 minute left to live, they said, "Never mind, it was a mistake." And and by the way, people, it was a very frightening thing. People were actually picking up manhole covers in the street and going down into the sewers and trying to hide from the missile. I mean, it wasn't something minor. This was a terrifying incident for people. And, I had to call my children up and say, "Sorry, kids, I didn't text you to say goodbye and I love you, because I was too busy Googling, because I was looking for verification and evidence that this was actually a real event." So that's the way a profiler thinks. So I want to know the evidence, not what I might guess, not what, it could be this and it could be that, and I could, just speculate without having very much information. So in the case of Gabby Petito, people were very upset that I would not analyze the video, which I think should never have been released to the public, because it's none of our damn business. It was police business, not ours. We didn't need to see what was happening between the 2 of them. And again, I'm going to have to say this one more time. I'm going to put a link below for Ken Main's Unsolved No More YouTube channel, because I couldn't bear to look at most of the YouTube channels, because it was 2 hours of let's discuss what happened to Gabby, and let's talk about how horrible Brian is, and how he's a psycho, and how he's an abuser. Let's talk the body language. People are going to get into it and say, "Oh, I see you could clearly see he's an abuser." They all piss me off really badly. And, some of them aren't professionals, so they piss me off less badly than professionals. Ken Mains did a 20-minute video on Gabby Petito. And I was like, damn, one person out here who I would say, this is something you can go take a look at. So what happened is that the problem we have in this case, and this is what Ken Mains brought up very well. First of all, there was a very short instance where we saw a tiff. I'm going to say tiff. He calls it a domestic disturbance between 2 people. And he supported the police in their determinations, because they could not arrest anybody, because they saw no damage to anybody. Neither one of the parties wanted to charge the other one with assault. So what are they going to charge them with? Hold on a second. I'm trying to get that elephant out of my head here. Okay. The elephant trunk behind me. what are they going to charge them with? If the people don't want to charge, complain about the other person, and they said, no, we're getting married. This is just, we had a bad moment. I don't know about the rest of you, but I was married 25 years. There were a few domestic disturbances at my house. I sort of remember I lost a few dishes, Yep, lost a few dishes. Does that mean somebody should be arrested? Does that mean I was going to be murdered in the morning, or I was going to murder my husband in the morning? No. And most of the time when the police come to these disturbances, and as Ken Maines and I have been saying for days, the police run into this over and over and over again. This is not like, oh my God, what an unusual incident. We can't believe this even happened. No, this happens so many times in a patrol officer's career. He's constantly breaking up little tiffs between people shrieking at each other, people pushing each other. You can't arrest everybody. And the majority of the time when you break them up and tell them to go home, they're not dead in the morning. So they did the right thing. They talked to both of them. There was no evidence of a serious assault. Nobody wanted to charge anybody. They made great suggestions of just separate for the night and cool down. They did a good job. Now, here's something else I want to point out. Let's say that they did what everybody says they should have done. Oh, they should have arrested probably Brian. They don't think Gabby should be. What's her name, Gabby? I'm screwing up here. I'm forgetting people's names. Gabby. They don't think Gabby should be arrested, even though she did scratch and assault him. And, I'm not going to take sides on male, female, because there's a lot of people who want me to, saying the males are always the aggressors and are always the abusers. Not true. I know a lot of women who are pretty scary people. There are a lot of malignant narcissists, and they do stuff to their husbands and boyfriends. So I don't know. I don't know these two. I don't know who is what at that moment in time. But let's assume that the police decided, okay, we're going to arrest one of them, throw them in the clink for a few days. Now, tell me, how many of you are aware of this? And you can certainly, I think there's many cases where somebody gets charged, and as soon as they get charged, they come back out, the couple gets back together again. That happens all the time. They get back together again. And then if they end up dead, they end up dead maybe months later. You can throw them in jail 500 times over, and they'll still come out 501 and kill each other. So it's ridiculous to think that the police screwed up terribly. They should have separated this couple because that would have prevented death. That's nonsense. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And so that's one thing Ken Maines and I agree with. The police did an appropriate job. And Ken Maines and I both agree on another thing. We're not going to analyze who is the bad guy at that moment, because we don't know. We honestly do not know. And I don't, if I go back into history and then we find enough of history where one of them is more of an abuser than the other, well, then that's so. But from one little teeny tape, I don't know who's driving who crazy, who is more assaulting who is gaslighting who. I don't know. And as a professional, I'm not going to say that when I don't know. Ken Maines said the same thing. Didn't know. It's a domestic disturbance. That's all we know. And before you start thinking, oh, it's always, it's got to be the guy. It's got to be the guy. I just want to point out, you remember Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? Now, Amber Heard accused Johnny Depp of attacking her violently so many times in domestic abuse. Well, his side of the group says, no, she was the abuser. And I really don't know anything about Johnny Depp. I don't, but I was in the green room with Amber Heard for an hour. This is before they got together. They were just starting to do I think they were just starting a movie together. I was in the green room with that woman. And when I walked out, I said to somebody, whoever hooks up with that woman next is in a hell of a lot of trouble. And I was right. It didn't go well because I watched her behavior for an entire hour. And I'm going to say, I can't say that Johnny Depp is the bad guy in this domestic situation that he and Amber Heard had. So unless you really know, unless you can really analyze all the evidence, we don't know. And for people just to go on the net and just go crazy about this and say, hey, you should be able to analyze this. No, I'm a professional, not going to analyze it. So, oh, look at this. Suddenly Beautifully says, makes me nuts. People are blaming those cops for her murder. It happened 2 weeks later. Oh, there you go. Arresting him wouldn't have made a difference. She returned to her abuser after separation. Again, we don't know that he was her abuser. See, we're saying that. How do we know she wasn't an abuser? Now, I'm going to point out something that this is why you don't analyze something you don't have evidence on. Now, we know she's dead. Okay. That's a given. She's been found dead. That's now a piece of evidence. Before she was found dead, we don't know really what happened to her. We have cases of people doing weird things and disappearing and trying to make another person look guilty of something. So before she was found dead, I was not willing to say she was murdered. Now, she's been found dead. I don't know exactly how she was found, and neither does anybody else. I haven't seen crime scene photos. I don't know. The coroner ruled this, and here's the word that nobody's using in the media except for a few people. Initial manner of death. Basically, he's looking at it going, I think this. Autopsy hasn't been done. He says, I think this. Now, I want to also tell you about coroners. A coroner can be a medical examiner, which means he might have a lot of experience. In some rural areas, a coroner is some dude that was politically chosen. And there's a joke about, what's it called, a tailgate autopsy, where the coroner shows up and says, yep, they're dead, because they don't have a lot of expertise. So right now, we have a dead person, who is Gabby. We do not actually know how she died. So let's look at there's a bunch of possibilities. She was shot, she was stabbed, she was strangled, she was beaten. Okay, those are 4. Some blunt trauma. I'm not going to say beaten. Blunt trauma. She probably wasn't poisoned. So shot, stabbed, blunt trauma, and strangled. All right. If she were shot, I don't believe they had a weapon with them. But if she was shot, well, it's probably going to be a murder. But, it might not be. It could be a suicide. It could be an accident. So let's put that one aside. Let's talk about knives. In theory, if somebody's knifed, you think it's usually a murder, but there have been people who've fallen on a knife. There have been. They're holding out the knife and they trip and they stab themselves. And now they got a knife in their chest and they die. What does it look like? Murder. Is it murder? Not necessarily. Usually, but not always. So let's put that one aside. Now, strangulation. That one usually is murder. Usually it's, I have problems with people. They put their hands around your neck and start squeezing it and when your eyes pop out. Usually, if they keep doing that, they're trying to kill you. Now, you could say I was in a rage and didn't realize I'd killed her. But usually strangulation, that's kind of really murder. Blunt trauma. It could be a bunch of things. It could be, here's an example. He's driving along and Gabby says, I'm not staying in this van a minute longer with you. And she opens the door and leaps out. And she leaps out of a pretty good rate of speed and she slams into a rock and she smashes her head in. Now she's dead on the side of the road. Or let's say she tripped and she was struggling with him and she was beating at him. She missed him and then she fell and hit her head on a rock. And now she's dead. Not saying that's the most likely situation, but could it happen? It could. Now here's the thing. So if the guy murdered her, that would be a good reason why he went on the run. He's trying to hide because he knows he's going to prison. He's terrified. Or it could have been a weird accident. And now he still thinks he's going to be blamed, which is probably true. He's probably going to get nailed with murder. And, he's terrified he's going to go to prison for something he didn't do. I don't know which one it is. I'm going to say percentage-wise, is more likely over here than over here. But that doesn't mean it's true because we don't have the evidence yet. And then the question is he a psycho? And people have said, that guy's a total psycho. Do you know if he's a psycho? I mean, it is possible people have made, I'm not going to say punching a woman is the right thing to do. But let's say she drove him nutty and he did punch her, and the one punch did her in, because sometimes girls get killed with one punch. It's not premeditated murder. It may be homicide, but it's not a premeditated murder. It's not like he's a psychopath that said, I want to kill the bitch. I'm going to drive her out into the country and I'm going to stab her to death. That's premeditated homicide. That guy's a psycho. But if it's not quite that, I'm not willing yet to label the guy. And we have this horrific, people are out there just like, it's like a lynch mob. It's like a lynch mob and pitchforks just going after this guy. And I'm not saying he's an innocent guy, but this is bad behavior on the part of the public. It is totally unnecessary. None of us knew Gabby. We did not know her. So the fact that we've taken this to be such an emotional thing for just us is kind of crazy. There's lots and lots of people who are missing and murdered, and we're not getting involved with those cases. But because the media made a big mass thing out of this, now everybody's involved, and it's like they made her into a family member, and they're absolutely, they got to get this guy. And they should leave it to the police. And here's the thing that I just read, which I thought was interesting. Here's an article coming in. Sleuths and bogus tips slow down the real investigators in the Brian Laundrie search, because everybody's so insane about this that they're interfering with the police investigation by giving bad tips, by saying he's over here, I saw him over there. They're saying stuff that we don't even know is true. Like even the part where he was supposedly, the restaurant issue, where supposedly they were in a restaurant, like the people said, this couple said, like we were the last people to see him. And he was like enraged at the waitress. And I could tell he was really creepy. That's all over the news. Now, I'm sorry, but if somebody had videoed me in a couple of restaurants in my lifetime, they would have seen me acting like that. It doesn't mean I was going to murder the person I was with. It just meant that I was pissed about the service. And maybe I'd had a bad day and was already over the edge. So now we got to get these people. See, he did. We don't even know if it's true. We don't know if they're making the story up. We don't know if they're exaggerating the story. We don't know. This is all media driven. It's not police driven. So it's just gotten so out of hand. And that's why I did the public service announcement to say we should not make this a reality show. So we want to look at things logically. That's what a profiler does. And that's what Ken Maines did in his 20-minute video on it. He was like very logical. And it's like, oh, what a relief. Somebody who won't run off with this story and drive everyone crazy with it and milk them for money, because I've looked at how many people. Now, Ken Maines has many more subscribers than I do, so he has more views than I do. But let me tell you, compared to some of these people out there with 100,000 views on this one day's worth of talking about Gabby Petito, because they're milking it 2 hours of, what do you think happened next? Blah, 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 blah. Makes me crazed. Makes me absolutely crazed. Suddenly Beautifully says, Amber is sociopath. I don't know. See, I don't know. All I'm saying is, I was in the green room with her, and I was worried about anybody who ever hooked up with her. That's all I'm going to say, because if I don't do a full review of her behavior, then I would not be able to say anything specifically. Okay, Suddenly Beautifully says, is evidence the 911 call reporting the male slapping the lady? Yes and no. Now, see, this is what the police should be dealing with, not the rest of the general public. I didn't hear the phone call. I didn't see how it went down, what the phone call actually said. Somebody says slap somebody doesn't mean that they were slapping first. Sometimes it's more like, get off of me. Maybe she was punching him and clawing at him, and he's going, stop it. Is he abusing her, or is she abusing him? I don't know. I don't. And so I will not go there, because we don't know. Again, we don't have the details of the evidence, and that's the problem. Let me see I'm just looking to see any other questions. So yeah, so that's my thoughts on the Petito case, is that the police did a perfectly reasonable job. They had no idea that anything bad was going to happen. Maybe they didn't either. They thought, okay, we got our act together. We're off on the road again. I want to point out something else. somebody can say something and then people will take it to heart and say, oh, see, this is proof. Somewhere along the way, Gabby said, he didn't support my dream of being an influencer, a YouTuber. Well, I'm sorry, but looked like he was supporting her dream pretty damn well, because he went on this trip with her. He's taking all the photographs with her. It's going on YouTube. I think he's doing a pretty good job. Let me tell you about when I went into profiling. So I told my husband one day, I'm divorced now, but I was married for 25 years. I was 40 years old. And I told him, I'm going to become a criminal profiler. And he went, yeah, right. Yeah, sure you are. You're 40 years old. You've never been in law enforcement. You've been homeschooling the children for the last 12 years. And you're a sign language interpreter at the hospital. Like hell, you're becoming a criminal profiler. So do I say he won't support my dream? Well, he's got a rational reason for thinking I'm kind of like crazy, that my chances of succeeding are very, very little. And Gabby's chances of becoming a big YouTuber are also very, very little. Now, she was attractive. I thought their pictures together were nice. I thought it was cute. I thought it was good. However, do you know how many other cute couples are out there? It takes a long time to get monetized. It takes a long time to earn any money on YouTube. How long can you go without money unless you're independently wealthy? So maybe, he's not that thrilled. He's like, geez, I don't mind taking a vacation and trying to see what we can do with this, but hey, Gabby, this is really the likelihood of us, making a living out of this are not good. Maybe we should just fold up and go home now. And maybe that and then highly upset her. He doesn't support me. So when somebody says something like that, it doesn't mean the other person is a bad person. I don't think my ex was a bad person for saying I was kind of nuts, because he was right. He was kind of right. I mean, the chances of me succeeding were very minimal. So like, I didn't blame him for that. Actually, I just said, well, I'm going to prove it to you, but I actually didn't blame him for that, because it is kind of irrational, and, it's a long shot, and, you want the person to know it's a long shot. It's okay to try. It's okay to have a dream, but also realize it might be a long shot, and maybe you need to keep your day job. So when you hear something in isolation, where he won't support my dream, and then everybody jumps on it going, see, he's a bad guy. It's like, this is ridiculous. It's just one person's opinion, and we don't know what the truth is behind any of that. I don't know what the relationship was for the 2 years they were together. I don't know if they're happy or unhappy. I don't know if they've gotten worse over the years, couple of years. I don't know if when they went on the road, it was too much togetherness, I don't know. But I like what Ken Main said. Every relationship has domestic disturbances, unless you have an amazing relationship. There are domestic disturbances. People scream at each other. People get angry. People slam the doors and walk out of the house. Sometimes people get in the car and drive away for a while because they can't stand the person they're with for at least a week or two, and then they come back. I mean, it's hard to live with people, and so relationships aren't always smooth. So I don't know what the relationship was, and so I can't comment on it. So anyway, I want to move on to something else. Here's another kind of interesting thing. I'm going to check to see if you have any extra questions on here. I want to see. Oh, yeah. Christine says, oh, yes. Coffee cups thrown into disagreements back in the day. Oh, coffee cups. Annie said, glad you quit your day job and achieved your ambition. Yeah, he wasn't happy about that. I mean, I at least had started it, and I worked 5 more years in sign language interpreting before I switched over. But it was a risk. It was definitely a risk. And, if you look at it and think, well, you're making really good money doing this, and you don't hate your job. I love sign language interpreting. And yet I was willing to throw that away, essentially, and go to try something that's kind of unlikely as going to be super successful. And, we lost a lot of income, and what didn't make them happy. And I can't blame them. I mean, I can blame them for other things because I'm now the ex-wife. But some things he was perfectly reasonable about. So what did Martin say? True love travels on a gravel road. It's just the way life is. It's just the way life is. And anybody who's trying to paint it not that way is crazy. Do I think there's a problem with domestic abuse? Where one of the people in the relationship is under the thumb of the other and can't figure out how to get out of it. And there's gaslighting going on, and there's all kinds of emotional abuse and maybe physical abuse. Yes, that does exist. And it may have been the relationship that Gabby and Brian had. Brian may have been that emotional or physical abuser, or both. I just don't know, and I'm not going to diagnose it. And do I think we should talk about this more? Absolutely. I'm going to do some shows on this exact thing, but I'll do shows on them. I won't be using a 5-minute video as my example of, hey, look at this, look at the body language. He's this or she's that. No, I will discuss it, and we should discuss it in the family, in the community, in our schools. We should help people keep from getting into bad relationships, to be able to identify red flags before they commit to a relationship. Absolutely. We should do all of those things. But, trying to diagnose somebody that we don't know in a few short minutes is crazy. But here's another one. Here's something I wanted to bring up because I thought this was a really interesting story. This comes out of the Winter Haven Police Department. They apparently Winter Haven Police Department is in Florida, and they got a lot of problems with shoplifters. So what they're doing is they keep putting up all the shoplifters one after the other to show, hey, so this one, for example, how about a 3,000 PSI Craftsman pressure washer valued at $329? The guy in the video was dropped off at Lowe's by a female in a white sedan. I show the car going by. He walked through the store and focused on the aisle where pressure washers are located. He stayed there for quite a while, retrieved a cart, selected the one he wanted. He didn't stop at any cash register, self-checkout, or otherwise, and walked right out of the store. Do you recognize him? Give him a call. The police officer call. People aren't having too much of an issue with this until you get to this one. And then the internet went ballistic. There are over 4,000 comments on this one Winter Haven Police Department post on Facebook. Listen to what it says. So when your card is declined and you try another one with the same result, that is not licensed to just walk out with the items anyway. The guy pictured below, and it shows a guy walking, he's got some shorts and a shirt, and let's see if I can show it to you. See that dude? Shorts and a shirt, and he's carrying one child, and the other child is walking next to him. Okay? The guy pictured below, poor little kids, had no idea, went to Walmart on September 15th around 4:30 p.m. and selected items, ultimately heading to the self-checkout lanes. He scanned the items, attempts to pay, and the card is declined several times. He walks out of the store, leaving the items behind. He evidently left the children with someone outside because they did not come back with him the second time. He comes back in with a different card. That card was also declined several times, but he decides to take the items anyway. Does anyone, he's driving a white SUV, possibly a Chevy Trailblazer, and does anybody recognize him? Please call. Now, why were people so upset? Because he was buying diapers and wipes. So these are the type of comments you see. I'll buy his diapers, doggone it. I guess this isn't one of those police departments that sees someone struggling and drops groceries off, or a car seat, or any of that for TV stuff I've seen. He tried repeatedly to pay and he didn't have the money, but he had kids who needed diapers. Life's hard, y'all. Sometimes people try and still come up short. And there are like comment after comment. I would have bought the diapers. You're horrible people. He needed the diapers for his kids. All right. Since when does needing something mean that you steal? I'm sorry. I did not grow up that way. I'm not talking about a situation where, let's say, you're a person living on a street in a country. You're actually sleeping in what in India they call it the footpath. The whole family's sleeping in the footpath. There is absolutely zero money. There's no work. The kids are starving. They look like skeletons. And you see some bread and you grab a piece of bread for your child. We're not talking about that. The dude had a what did he have? A Chevy Blazer? He had a vehicle. He was dressed okay. The kids were dressed. He could theoretically ask for help. There's so many places to ask for help these days. You could go and say, look, I need diapers desperately. And I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say this. If you can't have money for diapers, there's a thing called a cloth diaper. It's messier, but you can do it. I mean, you can do it. You don't need wipes. You can use a washcloth. You can take a piece of cloth and put your pins on it. And when they poop, you take it off and wash them up and put up another one. Hey, that happens. You don't have to buy all the fancy diapers. You don't. It's easier, but you don't. Or I say you can go someplace and you can ask for help. There's a lot of places that will give you diapers and things that you need for a small child. Usually, you should be able to ask family for help or friends if you're that desperate that day, unless your family and friends don't want to give you money anymore because you've abused them. And this is what people don't get. You know why he probably doesn't have money for diapers? Is because he probably used the money to buy drugs or used the money to buy alcohol or used the money for something else he felt like doing. That's why he doesn't have any money left for the kids. So I remember a situation when I was in the Boys and Girls Club, and it really pissed me off because there was a family in there, and they said, we don't have money to pay for the children's fees for the club. So my husband and I paid the fees. And then we saw them going through McDonald's on the way home, feeding all the kids McDonald's. And I'm like, seriously? We just paid your fees. And then the next week, they come in, they got brand new tennis shoes on. And I'm like, what? Sometimes people just don't want to spend the money in the way they should spend it. They want to spend it some other way. And then they take your money to get the other necessities. So I think a lot of times people don't understand how people actually behave. I've said this a lot about homeless people in this country. And again, many countries, when people are homeless, they're really homeless. They're homeless because they're starving to death. There's just no way to make money. There's no way to survive. In our country, usually by the time you're homeless, I'm not going to say there's not a few cases. Usually by the time you're homeless, you've been involved with drugs for a long time, or you've been involved in alcohol for a long time. You may have psych problems and should be someplace, and we have thrown those people on the street. But generally, what happens is you have burned all your bridges. In other words, your relatives did try to help you. You went and stayed with them. You stole their shit to buy drugs, or you stayed there and messed up their house and ate all their food and contributed nothing, or you brought your boyfriend home to molest the kids, or and so you burned your bridge on this one. So you went to the next relative, and then the next relative, and the next relative, and the friends, and by the time you finished, there's no one left that wants to help you. That's why you're on the street. I know absolutely for a fact. If I had a problem tomorrow, something happened, I got a list of places I could stay. Starting with my sisters, that both would take me in. I've never lied to them. I've never cheated them. They know if I came to their house, I'd work my butt off to help clean and do whatever I could. And I have friends who would take me in as well. So I mean, you might not want to abuse, just take, living there for too long. But the point being that, when a lot of these people are begging you for money, that money isn't going into anything good. That money is going usually into drugs. And there's a history behind it is what I'm trying to say. So as a profiler, I've seen the histories behind people. And so when people get they're good-hearted people. Oh, I would give that guy diapers. Yeah, you give him the diapers. And when he's sitting down there drinking beer later tonight, you're going to be really pissed. But that's a reality. I just want people to understand reality. It's, it may not be the reality we wish, but it is kind of the way it works. I'm not saying you should never help people, but, you might want to find out how you're helping them and whether they deserve the help. And at least not get mad because the police don't want guys to keep shoplifting. I mean, some people are actually saying, Walmart should just give the shit to them. Really? So everybody who comes in can say, no, my kid really needs socks. Give me the socks. My kid really needs. And you come in the next day, the whole food section will be gone. And all the clothes section will be gone. People have an excuse to take everything. I mean, a store is a store for a reason. It's not a free-for-all that they're giving away stuff. It's, that's not what it is. So to say that Walmart, because, Walmart just rips everybody off, Walmart should just give away stuff because somebody wants it. So if they walk out of the place with the merchandise, okay, no biggie. And we're having more and more problems with people just walking out because we're not allowing security to do anything anymore. And people, a lot of times the penalties are so low now that the courts don't even want to bother with them. So the penalty is so low that you might as well, you can steal like up to $1,000 worth of stuff and You'll get lucky if you get a slap on the wrist. So, I don't blame this police department. I think they're trying to stop, crime. They're trying to stop crime. So that's my opinion on that. I just thought that was a funny statement. Now I have a question that came in from Lisa, and I didn't answer it last week, and I wanted to answer it. And it was a really interesting question and hard to answer. The question was, is there anything, one of the cases you've ever worked, which you wish you had done something different? In other words, I shouldn't have, maybe I had better choices I could have made. And I've been thinking back through a lot of cases, and the one that kind of sticks with me, it's not a huge thing, but it showed me that I was, let's put it this way, I had tunnel vision as to what I was doing and didn't have enough empathy going out to the family to realize how they would take it. So what happened was, I'll tell you the story, the case. It's actually in, the story is actually, the general story is in Profiler book. And it's a story, it's Sarah in here. And this was one of my earliest cases I worked on. And I think I did a great job profiling it personally. And it's going to be a funny story. Oh, there, Lisa, hi. Sorry about that, Lisa, about the missing the start. That was YouTube saying I can't stream and going crazy, but I'm glad you're here. So you can always go back and watch the start, but I'm here for that question. The name of the actual girl, the profile, was a girl named Darlene Krashock. She was a Fort Carson soldier who was murdered in 1987. I forgot when I started working on the case. I'm going to say 2000. I don't know. Wait a minute, not that late. Some of my earlier cases. So I'm going to say maybe in 95, 96, somewhere around there. So it was like it was a super cold case by the time I was looking at it. And they were desperate. They couldn't get the police. They couldn't get any answers from the police. And they felt not enough had been done. So I got this case, and she had gone out drinking that night, as you know, a lot of young soldiers do. She's out having fun, and she sort of disappeared somewhere in the night, and her body was found behind a place called the Korean Club, I think it was called that. And her body was found it was snowing out there because it was March 16th, it was Colorado. There was snow on the ground, and her body was out there. And she was mostly naked, except for she had some like pants that were what do you call this? Oh shoot. Okay, ladies, give me a name. When you yeah, like not tights. What are the pants you call them when you're the soft ones that you oh God, I hate it when I forget the names of things. Anyway, she had one. She had it on her left leg and it was hanging off. Somebody give me that. Oh, don't look at me, says Martin. I'm hoping not, but they changed names over the years, so I'm just trying to remember what they call them now. Not pantyhose, leggings. Thank you, Annie. Thank God. Okay, leggings. They were leggings, and they were hanging off of one leg. They weren't on both legs. They were hanging off of one leg, and which was really kind of weird. And she had been strangled to death and had a lot of other really horrible, really bad injuries. She had a bite mark to this part of her hand. She had some other things done to her, and so what I did was I analyzed the case, and the police had stated back in the day, they had told me that they thought 2 or 3 guys grabbed her out of the club, drove her to a location, sexually assaulted her, and then killed her, and then drove back and dumped her in the lot. And I'm looking at this case, I'm thinking there's a lot of interesting things about this case which tell me that's not true. One of them was the way her hand was bitten. It was like she was protecting herself, and this guy attacked her in a very small space. There was some gravel on her hand. I can't get into the whole details of the case. It's in the book. And so I knew she was in the front seat of a vehicle when this assault started. I believe she was pulled into the back into a van. And the leggings, if you got, hey, Martin, you want to talk about this? So anyway, if a dude gets a girl on a bed and he wants to get the leggings off. What he usually does is grab with both hands and pull them off of her. But, you know, when you're in a vehicle, you don't have a lot of room to pull, so you get one leg out and you're good. It's called access. And some women who have been on dates and are in cars will probably say, yes, I know exactly what that is when you have your pants all, you know, off of one leg, but still hanging on the other leg. Don't anybody agree? But that's what happens to her. And so I went around and went to many different stores, and I took objects like this and go, oh, look, it's got a circle. And I go, nope, that's not it. And see, this one has a rim. I do, yeah, is that it? And I finally found the exact match, and it was Minwax. It's a Minwax can. You know, they have these little lids. They kind of like a little raised lid. And what you do is you take, you know, some whatever you're prying it up with, you put it in there and you pry it. And when you pry it, the side of that lid gets squished. So there's that flat part. Everything, I measured it to the millimeter, both of them matched. So my belief was she was killed in the vehicle, and then she was left laying in the vehicle on top of Minwax can tops or something just like it. I couldn't find anything else like it, but the Minwax can tops. And those you can use for like what, staining furniture, or some of them have, I don't know, painting them. I can't remember way back then. So I said that whatever the guy's got a van of some sort, and you know, he's got this stuff in it. So they took my information, and I said, you know, they look who are suspects, and I came up with a few that I knew of. And I said, well, the bouncer at the club has some interesting things going on with him. He actually was in prison at the time. So they went and talked to him. And then I said, he's like a good one. And I say, here's another one. But these are the only ones I know that exist. I don't know. I didn't have access to all their records so I could look through everything. I just said, here's my profile and what I think. And at some point, I think at the time I had a website, and I would put sometimes information about the cases on there. And I put some information about this case up, which upset the family, the parents, because they just felt that it was, what do you want to say? It was very private to them, and they thought it was very personal, and that I didn't take into consideration their feelings about how it would be if that was said about their child, that injury was done to their child. And I learned, oh, look at this. It says, your connection is unstable. Wait while we try reconnecting. Oh, good. Is it unstable, guys? Because now it says it's unstable. Please wait while we reconnect. Here we go again. Problems. Can you see me clearly? Because it's saying I'm disappearing again. That I have an unstable connection. And I don't want to keep going if it is that yet again. Oh, goodness, can anybody hear me or see me? Oh, okay, thank God. All right, I'm still here. See, I told you there's something going really bad with YouTube at the moment. So, so frustrating. And I don't know what you can do about it, except sometimes it fails to. Mine still says it's trying to reconnect here, but you're saying it's fine. Okay, cool. All right. So at any rate, so I was insensitive is what they thought. You're very insensitive. You put this information up about our daughter, and we find it, embarrassing, and you shouldn't have put that up. And they got very, very angry with me. And then they hated me after that. And I took it right off the internet. And they didn't speak to me after that again. Even though I did a lot of work on the case, and I thought an excellent profile, but I really upset them. And that made me understand that you can't always look at things through the lens of a profiler, because I'm kind of jaded. I see a lot of dead body pictures. I see people and all kinds of stuff and mangled and all kinds of unfortunate things. But they're not my child. It's not my experience. I'm looking at it as a professional, I can just look at it. I can sit and eat pizza and look at horrible photos. And it's not that I don't care about the people who have been killed. You just get that ability to, just look at it as a doctor might look at a patient for the majority of the time. I remember this one instance when my son had this horrible bike crash, and the plastic surgeon was telling me about how he's going to fix my son's face. It took him 5 hours to rebuild his face. And he was talking to me, and he said this. He's like, this is a really exciting case I've got here. And I'm thinking, this is my 5-year-old son. How can you be so heartless and cold, and what a horrible bedside manner? And then I thought to myself, do I want a good bedside manner, or do I want a guy who can really do a good job fixing my son's face? Maybe he's cold-blooded, but he's probably a really good surgeon. So then I was able to step back and say, go for it, fix my son. But his bedside manner sucked. And my bedside manner with that family, I think, sucked at that moment, because I wasn't separating my enthusiasm for my work from what they were going through. Even if it had been 10 years, it didn't matter. It hurt them. And so I learned something from that too, that I have to recognize that even as a profiler, I got to realize where they're coming from. And I felt really bad about that. I really, 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 really felt bad about that. But I want to tell you how the case turned out, because this is also kind of just really weird. So anyway, this year the case was solved. I remember it's a 1987 case. What they did was they used a technique using DNA recovered from the crime scene, allowed investigators to create and distribute a composite sketch, which really wasn't that useful. I thought the composite sketch was kind of stupid, but any rate. But in 2019, they ran DNA evidence through a genealogy database, and they zeroed in on this guy named Michael White with a Y. They confirmed his DNA was a match with the forensic evidence using a fast food cup he had discarded, and they took him into custody in June of that year, and he got convicted, by the way. And what was interesting about this was he claims he's innocent, of course. He's claiming he's innocent. He's trying to get an appeal. And he says, I didn't do this. But, amazingly enough, this is what's interesting. His DNA matched in a database, in a familial thing. And then they went and got the cup and they matched the crime scene. He wasn't just some guy out there. So, I have cases where they'll say, oh, this guy did it. And there's absolutely nothing connecting him to the area or to the crime. This dude was exactly in that location where Darlene Krashak was. He was right there. He was in the same club she was in. And he was, even though he's married, he was sleeping with other women. So I'm going to say, probably you, dude. Probably you. And unfortunately, because they just used DNA, I don't think they wasted their time in trying to figure out what vehicle he had or how any of it went down, which is frustrating to me, because I'd like to know how much of my profile was accurate in how I analyzed it. And I said, and she goes, I think you could, he's innocent. My brother's innocent. I'm like, so I said, I have to be honest with you. His DNA matched. He was in the club. I'm having a hard time saying the guy's not innocent. It's stuck again. It's got to be YouTube with this. Can you? Am I not being able to be heard again? I can tell you, it's just, I don't know what's going wrong these days. I don't understand. I'm having problems again tonight. I just don't know. So I may have to try to figure it out. So anyway, I'm going to say goodnight, because obviously we're having connection problems. So I will see you on Sunday, hopefully. Hopefully I'll figure out what the connection problems are and we can stop having them. But I'm fully connected and plugged in, and so I don't know what's wrong with YouTube. So at any rate, good night, everybody, and hope to see you in the future. Bye.